You might want to sit down for this if you're Canadian, because it's been 35 years since we've seen an all-Canadian Stanley Cup final. Is that drought about to end this year? Maybe. There it is in all its glory, ladies and gentlemen. The Stanley Cup playoff bracket is set, and the playoffs are literally days away. So it's time to make some picks. It's time to make some predictions. Bust out the pen and paper. Time to go to work. And let's start in the Eastern Conference in the Atlantic Division with the Atlantic Division champions. It's the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Ottawa Senators. It's the Battle of Ontario for the first time since 2004. Historically, the Leafs own the Sens in the playoffs. 4-0. Now, does that matter a whole ton? You make of that what you will. The players on each of these teams were not involved in those series. I mean, certain players' parents were. Ty Domi's son, Max Domi, plays for the Leafs. Travis Green, who's the coach of the Ottawa Senators, played for the Leafs during the heat of the Battle of Ontario. So there's that connection. But other than that, these players have nothing to do with that. So whatever happened in the past, happened in the past. Forget about it. The Leafs, as the Atlantic Division champions, are favored, which is kind of rare in this Austin Matthews era, because if you go through the years, you go back to 2020, they were favored against Columbus. What happened in that series? They got bumped. 2021 favored against Montreal, where the Leafs went in as the division champs, the North Division champs, and Montreal, they were essentially the 8th seed. Leafs went up 3-1 in that series. They got bumped in that series as well. And then in the second round against Florida in 2023, the We Want Florida thing, remember that? They were also favored and got bumped, I believe it was in 5 games? 4-1, I believe, was the final in that series, and Florida went on to go to the Stanley Cup. They ended up losing, but won it the next year. But the Leafs, when they are favored in this core 4 era of Austin Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, and Morgan Riley, when they're favored, they don't do so well. But one thing that they haven't been in past series, they're the veteran team. Usually it's the other way around. You know, Boston, Tampa, Florida, it's the Leafs that are the more inexperienced side. But this time around, it's the Sens who are the inexperienced side. Not that it's going to keep them back from potentially winning the series, but if you look at it, you got the veterans who've been in the Leafs who've been to the postseason 9 straight times, and this Sens team, first time since 2017. And they've done pretty well against the Leafs. I mean, they swept the season series 3-0. And if you go back the past 2 seasons, the Sens are 6-1-0 against the Buds. That's got to count for something. I mean, it's hard to translate regular season hockey to the playoffs, but there's no doubt that Ottawa is going to have confidence against this team. And if they had their choice out of Toronto, Florida, or Tampa, they would probably all put their hand up for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's be real. Just because of the Leafs' history in the first round of the playoffs over the past 9 seasons. So who has what edge in this series? Well, if you look at goaltending, I think it's about a 50-50 split. Linus Ullmark can obviously win a series. He's a very good goaltender, but he still has really proven it in the playoffs. He's got an .887 save with just 9 starts. But since March 1st in this regular season, he's 12-3-1 with a .910 save percentage. One of the best goalies in the league in that short amount of time. But on the other side, Anthony Stolarz, who's the projected starter for the Toronto Maple Leafs, 8-0-0 since March 15th with a .950 save. Also, he has the second best save percentage in the league. And I know he hasn't played as much as Darcy Kemper, Connor Hellebuyck, Bobrovsky, and who am I forgetting? Andrei Vasilevsky. I get it. But in the games that he has played, he's been one of the best goalies in the league. Has he started in the playoffs? No. And that's a big issue. 0 starts in the playoffs, projected number 1 starter. The backup behind him, Joseph Wall, who's not really a backup. It's more of a 1A, 1B tandem situation. Has some experience. He started, 4 games for the Leafs, and he's looked good, but still, he still has to prove it himself. So the goaltending, I think, is split down the middle. But if Linus Ullmark gets hot, he can win a couple games on his own. He's shown that he can do that, at least in the regular season. The guy's won a Vezina before, right? He's a good goalie. He can prove it in the playoffs. But also on the other side, Stolarz, looking like one of the best goalies in the league. If he can translate that into the playoffs to go along with the Leafs' really strong defense, they're playing playoff hockey right now. And if the horses up front can do what they're supposed to do and score goals, then I think you got to lean towards the Toronto Maple Leafs here. And scoring for Ottawa has been a bit of an issue. They can't score a 5-on-5. They're 31st in the league in that category. And that's concerning if I'm Travis Green, because entering the postseason, the games get tighter, the whistle goes away. So you're not going to have as many power play opportunities. And you're going to have to try and make it count as best you can at 5-on-5. And they haven't been able to do that in the regular season. If I'm the Leafs, that's one thing I'm looking at. If we can shut them down on 5-on-5 and limit their power play opportunities, we should be able to win this series. Let's be real. I mean, the Leafs, they're not blowing anybody away at 5-on-5. They're middle of the pack. Don't get me wrong. But their power play is cooking, and they have the game changers on their side. They have more game changers on their side than the Sens do. And now, finally, another edge Leafs have is home ice advantage. And it's not just so much as playing at Scotiabank. It's what happens when they go to the Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa, when Leaf fans travel so well. And during the regular season, if you're watching those games on broadcast, it sounds like it's a 50-50 crowd. And I've said this before in one of my previous videos. If I'm in Ottawa management and I have a ton of money, or I know somebody who's got a ton of money, I buy up as many tickets as I possibly can and start throwing them away to Ottawa Senators fans, because you cannot have Leafs fans invade that barn. And that's what's probably going to happen. And that's only going to benefit Toronto. I mean, it might piss off the Sens, sure, but do you really want to hear "Go Leafs Go" in your own barn? Probably not. So the Sens got to figure that one out before game 1 starts. Okay, enough of breaking it down. Here's who I'm going with. It's the Leafs in 7 games. And the reason I'm going 7 games is because it's the Leafs. It's never easy with these guys. If you think they're going to go out and sweep the Sens or beat them in 5 games, it's not happening. The Sens are a good team. They play a physical brand of hockey. The Leafs have demons who can creep up in any game at any moment. And the goaltending has to prove itself. So we still don't know about that. And I think Allmark could probably steal a couple games. I think Stolarz or Wall can steal a couple games. And then it's going to come down to the X factors. And I think the Leafs have the edge in the X factor department. Guys like Matthew Nyes, Bobby McMahon can pitch in with some goals to go along with the horses up front. Okay, let's continue in the East and go to the Battle of Florida, which is going to be an incredible series. It's their 4th meeting in the playoffs. The Panthers beat them up last year 4-1. In 2022, the Lightning swept them, and the Lightning beat them again in 6 in 2021. And all 3 of those meetings resulted in one of those teams going to the Stanley Cup Finals or winning it, which is unbelievable. I wouldn't be surprised if Florida or Tampa go on a run here because they're that good and they have that championship pedigree. It's going to be a hell of a series. Let's talk injuries. Tampa Bay, they're looking pretty healthy, and Vasilevsky's looking like Vasilevsky. He's got hellebuck numbers, at least 10 this season. And the Lightning, the team in front of him, 3rd best team in the league since January 1st. They got hot at the right time, snuck into that 2nd spot, clinched home ice, and now they get Florida with their goaltender looking like their goaltender. That's a scary proposition. For the Panthers, injury-wise, they're looking good. We just heard the captain. No, he's not the captain. Matthew Tkachuk. I don't know why I thought he was the captain. Matthew Tkachuk. Barkov's the captain. Matthew Tkachuk is back in the lineup. He's ready to go for game 1 according to Paul Maurice. So the load management worked. Not that he wasn't injured. He got hurt at the Four Nations, didn't play. And I guess Maurice and the Panthers were like, listen, let's just sit this guy. We're going to make it into the playoffs. Doesn't matter who we play. Let's get him ready to go. So Tkachuk is back. Aaron Ekblad won't be back until game 3 because he's been suspended for doping. So we know that. We've known that for a little while. And I think that's one of the reasons why they decided to go out and get Seth Jones. But other than that, they're healthy. Sam Bennett's back. Reinhardt's fine. Barkov is fine. Bobrovsky's good to go. So the Florida Panthers are going to do what the Florida Panthers do, and they're going to try and beat up on the Tampa Bay Lightning and make a run to the Stanley Cup Final for the 3rd year in a row. Now, what I think will decide this series is special teams, and that's going to decide a lot of series, I think, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But the Florida Panthers, they're middle of the pack when it comes to their penalty kill, but they take the most penalties in the league. Most penalty minutes, most penalties taken. And that's a scary game to play against this Tampa Bay Lightning power play because it's lethal. Top 3 in the NHL. Top 3 at 5-on-5. So if they're not killing you at even strength and you're giving them power play opportunities in, a game where the margins are so thin, I have to lean towards Tampa. So give me Tampa in 7 games. It's going to be a great series. Those 2 teams are going to beat each other up, and then one of them will meet the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's continue in the East, and let's talk about the Montreal Canadiens, who won their final game of the season to clinch a spot in the playoffs against the Washington Capitals, who finished as the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And this is a rematch 15 years in the making, because back in 2010, Washington, 1 seed, took on the 8th seed Montreal Canadiens, and what happened? The Habs upset them. This feels like deja vu. Can it happen again? Possibly, and we'll get to that. Let's talk about what's been going on with both these teams, starting with the Caps. Obviously, the great chase that Ovi was on was spectacular. So much fun to watch. But it also seems like it drained the energy out of this team a little bit down the stretch. Because if you're looking back at their record from around the end of March, it's the third worst record in the league. That's a problem. And they really haven't been able to right the ship. And I think the Habs will look at that coming in playing playoff hockey for the past 2 months, or at least since the Four Nations. They've been one of the best teams in the league, top 10 team in the league. They've been playing playoff hockey, and now they get a team who's kind of limping in. If I'm the Caps, I'm concerned about this series. Now, if you're looking at experience, the Montreal Canadiens will be the youngest team in the playoffs by far. So there's a lot of inexperience there when it comes to the playoffs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're lesser than the Capitals. Because if you look at Washington, I mean, outside of Ovechkin and John Carlson, who were there when they won a Stanley Cup, there's a lack of playoff experience there as well, right? Chikrin's played, 9 games, I believe, for Arizona back in the bubble. You're looking at a guy like Dubois, who's got limited experience, and Beauvillier and Strome. Ryan Leonard obviously he's barely played in the NHL. Their goaltenders don't have many starts combined together. The edge in goal, I think, is 50-50. Sam Montembeau's been pretty good. I mean, the other two are, at one point, I think Logan Thompson should have been in the mix probably for a Vezina. There isn't that big of an edge in goaltending, and that could benefit the Montreal Canadiens as well. And they have nothing to lose. I mean, I don't like saying that, but they really don't. I mean, they're ahead. This is year 3 of their rebuild. They wanted to be in the mix, and they're in the playoffs. So, I mean, if they get bumped in the first round, so be it. So I think they're playing with house money in this series, and that's scary for the Washington Capitals. And 2 of their best players have been to the Stanley Cup Finals before, Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki. They were part of that Montreal Canadiens team in 2021 that made a run to the Stanley Cup Finals. So there is some experience on that side. I think they're a scary team to play. I think home ice for Montreal is huge in this series. That Bell Center can create an incredible atmosphere. Imagine how hot they'll be for the playoffs. You saw what it was like down the stretch. You saw when Demidov went on a rookie lap. That place was going to blow up. The roof was going to explode off that place. Now imagine them in the playoffs. And I think if you're a Habs fan, you're probably thinking, hey, we might lose this series, but the Caps don't look that great. They're stumbling into the playoffs. Give us the Caps. We can take these guys down. And that's the way I'm leaning. I know that's crazy, but I'm going with a big upset here. I'm going the Habs in 7 games to beat the Washington Capitals. How about that? And the final series in the Eastern Conference is the Carolina Hurricanes against the New Jersey Devils. It feels like this matchup's been locked up for a really long time. I'll go through this one quickly. So the Canes, super experienced. They rarely lose in the first round, and they're taking on a Devils team they're just way too banged up. I mean, not having Jack Hughes, I think, is massive. They got a big boost, obviously, in Dougie Hamilton. Looks like he's ready to go, ready to play. They need him on the back end, especially on the power play. So, I don't know. I'm leaning heavily towards the Canes, but I can make a case for the Devils. Like, if you look at the goaltending, I got to give the edge to Markstrom in New Jersey because I don't trust Kochetkov. I don't trust Freddie Anderson. I don't even think the Carolina Hurricanes trust those 2 goalies. They trust their system more in front of them to get them as far as they want to go instead of their goaltenders. And I don't think that's a position that you want to be in. So I do think that Markstrom, who hasn't been great here down the stretch because of a few things. He just hasn't been great himself, but the team, they've looked kind of checked out and disinterested, which is not great heading into the playoffs. But I believe you can steal a couple games, maybe even 2 games, and make this somewhat of a series. And the special teams is going to be a big factor as well because the Carolina Hurricanes have the best PK in the entire NHL. The Devils have the 3rd best power play in the NHL. But unfortunately, similar to Ottawa, the Devils can't score at 5-on-5. So if they're not scoring on the power play against the best PK in the world, they're not scoring at 5-on-5, it's Carolina's series to win. So I'm going with the Canes. Been there, done that. Experienced team, like I mentioned. Markstrom wins a couple games. Carolina in 6. Let's slide over to the Western Conference and start with the Winnipeg Jets against the hot St. Louis Blues. The President Cup winning Winnipeg Jets have home ice, and we can't talk about this series unless we talk about goaltending. And let's start with Connor Hellebuyck, who's going to win the Vezina. He's in the running for the Hart. He might win the Hart Trophy as well. They could have a Vezina and Hart winner on their team in one player in Connor Hellebuyck. Let me just say this before I get into the rest of this, and this applies to every series in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Don't let what happened in the past to any of these teams or any of these players clouds you or blinds you from what you've seen this season. The Winnipeg Jets are the best team in the NHL. They proved it in the regular season. They have every single piece. They can roll all 4 lines. Their defense is solid, and they have the best goaltending in the league, and it's not even close. I mean, Vasilevsky down the stretch has been really good, but Hellebuck has been great from the start of the season to the end, and he was good for USA in the 4 Nations. So there's no reason to think that he can't replicate that form in the playoffs. And I get it. He hasn't done it before, but he can. You cannot be this good and not be able to execute in the playoffs. I find that very hard to believe. Now, on the other side, you're looking at Jordan Binnington. Guy's won a cup. He won the cup on the road. He just went to the 4 Nations with Canada and had John Cooper back him as much as possible and say, that's our guy. He's going to win it for us. And he did just that. Canada doesn't win that 4 Nations without Binnington. St. Louis doesn't win that cup back in 2019 without Jordan Binnington. So this guy can show up and win a series. Don't discount the Blues because they got a legit goaltender in between the pipes. And think about what St. Louis has done. They entered the 4 Nations face-off 8 points out of a playoff spot. Then they went on a 19-4-3 run out of the break and didn't look back. They got into the wild card and they're like, well, this is ours now. So, I mean, the Blues are fantastic. They have so many players who can do so many different things. I don't know if there's a hotter player going into the playoffs than Robert Thomas. I don't think there is. I think he's got like 25 points in his last like 15 games. Unbelievable player. So like most matchups in this first round, this series can hinge on special teams. The Blues' weakness, the PK, 27th ranked, not very good heading into the postseason, especially when you're going up against the #1 power play in the NHL. That's the Jets. That's the Jets. Velarde, power play god. Morrissey on there. Scheifele on there. Kyle Connor on there. Lethal. And I think when you have Hellebuck in your net, combine that with an incredible special teams, I think you win any series that you're in. So I'm going Jets. I'm going Jets 4-2. So Jets in 6 games. And now to what is probably the marquee matchup. It's the Dallas Stars against the Colorado Avalanche. And there's so much to talk about in this series. You obviously have the Stars who've made 2 straight conference finals. Plus they got Rantanen now, who's an absolute playoff horse. 101 points in 81 playoff games. You can match that up with, some of the best to ever do it in the playoffs, and that's where Rantanen sits, and that's one of the reasons why they got this guy. But they got some serious injury concerns. Miro Heiskanen officially ruled out for round 1, and there's a report that's circling around that he actually just might be out for the entire playoffs. So we don't know what's going to happen with him, but that's their #1 defenseman. He logs the most minutes when he's playing. There were times in last year's playoff run where he played 30-plus minutes easily. I love Thomas Harley. I love Esa Lindell. Those guys are really good, but they can't replicate what Heiskanen does. They're better when he's on the ice. When he's not there, not as good. If you look at some of their numbers coming here down the stretch, they've been one of the worst teams in the NHL. And just the other night, Jason Robertson, who's been hot down the stretch, got hurt. He left the building in a knee brace. We don't know his status yet, but if he's out, that's another blow. I know Sagan has just come back, but you need Robertson, you need Heiskanen. Those are 2 big blows for the Dallas Stars. Now you look at Colorado. Healthy. They rebuilt their team throughout the entire season. They moved on from Rantanen. They flipped him to Carolina. They brought in Marty Necas, who's playing alongside Nathan McKinnon, 2 of the fastest players in the NHL. The Avs are the fastest team in the NHL. At the trade deadline, what do they go and do? They bring in Charlie Coyle and Brock Nelson. So down the middle, they're absolutely stacked. They didn't like their goaltending, so they sent both away, brought in 2 new goalies in Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood. There is a bit of a concern there with the lack of playoff experience, but the Avs rebuilt their team on the fly, and they've been better for it. So I find it so hard to make a prediction in this series because I just did a preview of this matchup on this BetCanada YouTube channel. Go check it out. And I took the Stars, thinking that Heiskanen was going to be back, and obviously Robertson wasn't out, and I gave the goaltending edge to Jake Ottinger and the Dallas Stars. But with Heiskanen looking like he's ruled out for the series, Jason Robertson banged up, how Dallas has played down the stretch, I got to go the other way. And I didn't even mention Gabriel Landeskog might be back for Colorado. That's a huge boost. Even if he doesn't play like Landeskog in his prime, that boost of having him there is huge. So I'm going to go Avs. Yeah, I'm going to go Avs in 7, 4-3. The Minnesota Wild just backed into a playoff spot. They're going to be taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm on Vegas here. Vegas, look at this. Since 2017, guys, they've been to the finals twice. They won once. They lost in the conference finals twice. And they missed the playoffs just one time. This team knows how to win. This team has incredible experience. They're coming off a Stanley Cup win not that long ago. And if you look at the Wild, they're a good team. They're a tough team to play against. But they have a massive issue with trying to get out of the first round because they can't seem to do it. And winning at home is a problem, especially in the playoffs. 5 home wins in their last 7 playoff series. 5 home wins in their last 7 playoff series. Give me Vegas against the team who can't win at home, who also have the 3rd worst home record in the NHL. I'm going Vegas in 5 games. And for the 4th time, and hopefully the last time, I do not want to see this anymore, but it's going to be a great series. The Los Angeles Kings against the Edmonton Oilers. The Kings have home ice. They're the best home team in the NHL. That counts for a lot. And the Edmonton Oilers, man, they're so banged up. Like, they're just kind of the walking wounded. And I know McDavid said, we're fine. We're ready to go. But it looks like Matthias Ekholm is done for the foreseeable future. I mean, we haven't heard a report about him coming back anytime soon. They're losing their number 1 defenseman. In my opinion, on that team, it goes Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Matthias Ekholm. They don't have another defenseman like that. Not even close. Not even close. Darnell Nurse can't do that job. Bouchard can't do that job. That's a big issue. And I don't trust Stuart Skinner. I'm sorry. I know he was good last year, but he hasn't been good this season. The whole team's kind of fallen off here. And if you look at the Kings, they've been pretty good. Their issue is scoring goals, but defensively, one of the best teams. Darcy Kemper would be in the Vezina mix if it wasn't for Connor Hellebuyck running away with it. That's how good Kemper's been. So give me the team with home ice. Give me the team who knows how to get it done on home ice. I'm going to go Kings in 7, and that feels wrong because if the series goes 7, you'd have to expect that McDavid and Draisaitl could probably take it over the line, but I'm sticking with it. Give me the Kings in 7. All right, let's fly through these. The second round, let's start in the West. Winnipeg, Colorado. I'm going to go with Winnipeg. I love the goaltending. I love the team. I think in the second round, the game's going to slow down a lot more, and that's going to benefit Winnipeg. Colorado wants to play fast, and I think the Jets will probably slow them down in the second round, so give me the Jets. Vegas, Los Angeles. I like Los Angeles a lot, but I like Vegas even more. I think they get past the Kings probably in 7 games. In the East, Toronto, Tampa Bay. Man, the Leafs have the edge on Tampa. They've played Tampa really well. They've chased Vasilevsky a few times. They got his number. And I think if they can get over the hump of getting out of that first round and have a good matchup, I think, against Tampa Bay, give me the Leafs to get through there probably in 7 games. Montreal, Carolina. As much as I want Montreal to go on a run here, I think this is the end of the road. Carolina, too experienced, too good. They know how to snuff out these teams. Once they get into the later rounds, they play true playoff hockey, even if their goaltending isn't really up to snuff. I'm going Carolina to get past Montreal. All right, conference finals in the West. Winnipeg against Vegas. I'm riding Winnipeg. I told you, Connor Hellebuyck and the rest of that team, I think they get it done this year. Toronto, Carolina. I give the edge to Toronto, probably in goaltending, if it shows up in the playoffs, and that's what I'm hoping for. That's why Toronto's making it all the way to the conference finals. And I think if they're able to make it to the conference finals, the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's probably because Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, and William Nylander have figured out how to score in the playoffs. So give me the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup final. And it's an all-Canadian final, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time since 1989. And who am I going with? Connor Hellebuyck and the Winnipeg Jets. It's their year. It's a Canadian team's year. Winnipeg is your 2025 Stanley Cup champion. All right, there you go. That's my bracket. If you completely disagree with me, which you probably do, let me know in the comments below. Give me your predictions and who's going to win the Stanley Cup. And if you like this video, please hit the like button. There's going to be a ton more NHL playoff content coming your way from the BetCanada channel. So if you want to stay tuned and lock in, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.